from the rays of the one light. In the Gospel of St. Luke, chapter 15, we read the famous parable of the prodigal son. Jesus tells of the man who took the wealth bestowed on him by his father and squandered it in foreign lands, where he fell into evil ways. At last, repentant, he returned to his father's home. When his father saw him, he was, or so Jesus tells us, moved with compassion, and ran and fell upon his neck and kissed him. And the son said to him, "Father, I have sinned against heaven and before thee. I am no longer worthy to be called thy son." But the father said to his servants, "Fetch quickly the best robe and put it on him, and give him a ring for his finger and sandals for his feet, and bring out the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and make merry. Because this my son was dead, and has come to life again. He was lost, and is found." And they began to make merry. Small-hearted human beings, identified as they are with their little egos, give exaggerated importance to any slight they receive from others. Thus they imagine God, like them, to be petty, unpardoning, and vindictive. In God's eyes, however, when human beings go astray, there is nothing to forgive. All of us are aspects only of his own self. He who made us resides in us. He is not far away from us in some far-off heaven. His call to us always is to return to our own home, within. The way of return is described in the Bhagavad Gita in the 6th chapter. Supreme blessedness is that yogi's who has completely calmed his mind, controlled his ego-active tendencies, or rajas, and purged himself of desire, thereby attaining oneness with Brahma, the infinite spirit. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. I first want to speak about this son, the prodigal son, who was lost, but the father's so happy. He says, "This, my son, was dead, but now he's come to life again. He was lost, and now he's found." And it is that you see when you look on the streets, so many people, they're like the walking dead, that their faces are just frowning. It takes all of their energy just to move even a little bit. And that is how it is for us when we move away from God. But that no matter how far we have moved away from God, that we can return back to God. And God will be so pleased, not only once we make it into some high state like Nirvikalpa Samadhi, but when we even turn our little ship around and head it back in the right direction towards God, God will be very, very pleased. And honestly, this little thing is going on all the time, in every moment that we are trying to turn our consciousness, turn our mind, our hearts, our strength, our soul, all of it, back to God. But this is what pleases God, is when we are thinking of Him. And we'll get deeper into that aspect of thinking about God. But let us all, even though we may have been lost, become found again. And remember what our purpose of life is, what the purpose of life is, which is to find God. And so, talking about this, thinking about this, makes us think that yes, we have committed sins in the past. And Sri Yukteswar says that the lives of all men are dark with many shames. That means in the past. But that if we make the right spiritual effort now, that then everything will turn out right. I'm paraphrasing here. I've forgotten exactly the autobiography of the yogi, but that everything will improve if we make the right effort now. And again, that right effort really just means turning our energy, turning our attention back towards God. It makes me think of another passage from the autobiography of a yogi, and that is, I just lost it. That is that discrimination is only rightly guided once one realizes the inescapability of spiritual law. Those are very deep words. But if you meditate on them, if you think about them, that it means that we're never going to make this world work out properly, that we're never going to get it just right. And we have to understand that. We have to understand that deeply. And then instead of using our discrimination to buy the exact right car, or using our discrimination to make our diet just exactly right, or whatever, this world will never be perfect, that we use our discrimination to remember in every moment, oh yes, I need to turn my mind back towards God. I need to turn my heart back towards God. And this is a process, and it turns into a flow for us, a flow in which we are always feeling God's presence, and which then we want to increase that flow even more deeply. Turning back to this topic that will never perfect this world, Swamiji wrote a book, and it's called Hope for a Better World. It is not called Hope for a Perfect World. That we will never make this world perfect, and we have to understand that. But in that we must try. That doesn't mean that we just give up and say, well, the world's nonsense and junk anyways, I'll just ignore it. No. That God has given each one of us a little duty to do in this world. And when you realize the vastness of this world, and that there are many planets, the vastness of the cosmos, that our little part is certainly very little. But we have to do that part just perfectly. And do it to please God. Do it to the best of your ability. And in that we grow. And do it thinking of God. And that's the most important thing. So back to this, that we don't want to think of ourselves as sinners. That if you take a bar of gold, many people may be thinking about gold these days as the rupee note, the 500 rupee note has had its little time under the sun like we all do. But if you take a bar of gold and you hide it under a tremendously huge mountain, that even though it's covered by layers and layers of dirt and rocks and heaviness, it's still a bar of gold. And when you remove all of those rocks and dirt and heaviness, there it is, shining perfectly. And so we have to learn how to cleanse ourselves of the darkness. And it's not so much the bad things that we've done in the past, that those don't matter. God doesn't mind them one bit. To Him they're nothing. That He knows He's the one who put us in this mess anyways. He's the one who gave us those temptations. He knew even that we would fall into the trap. That doesn't matter. What matters is our heart, and do we turn back to God, even in the tough times, even when we have erred with our discrimination between what is right and wrong. And if we turn back to God, then it doesn't matter at all. And so a saint is a sinner who never gave up. That we have to never, ever, ever give up. And sometimes in the world when we pick up a project or this or that our inner guidance will tell us it's now time to just hang it up, as we say in the West, and just let it go and move on to something else. And that's all right. But when you set your will to something, if you really set it deeply, then don't give up, unless God gives you that inner commandment that now is time. But we do need to learn how to build our will strongly through taking on little projects and then succeeding, persevering until they're done. And we will make mistakes. Our will isn't perfect yet, but that is one way to make our will perfect. The second way to make our will perfect is to understand that it's not our will. That really it's God's will. We're just tuning into that reservoir of infinite power that is God's. And so lastly on this topic of sin, I actually want to say something extremely important. And I want you to meditate on this for a few seconds here. So I'm going to ask you a question. And the question is, what do you think is the greatest sin in God's eyes? So take a few minutes, think about that. What is the greatest sin in God's eyes? Okay, and now I'll give you the answer. The greatest sin in God's eyes is not to be happy. Never forget that. Emblazon that deeply in your soul, in your mind, that is the greatest sin, to not be happy. And so as you go through life, if your happiness is fading, get it back. Get it back right away. And I want to take a quote from the Gita right now. Without peace, how is happiness possible? Because if you have a difficult time finding peace or finding happiness, drop down a little bit. Find your inner peace. And Swamiji used to say that inner peace was his bottom line. That if some project was going to take away his inner peace, he would simply refuse to do it. I used to think, well, that was Swamiji, that I So this world is what it is, and that I'll just have to sacrifice my inner peace sometimes for the project, or for this, or for that, for the family. That's just how life is. It's not just how life is. Make your inner peace your bottom line. Refuse to do anything if it's going to take away your inner peace. Once you have that inner peace, like a building block, then you can make your own inner self. You can build yourself inwardly to be able to stand in that inner joy. Your human body, it really is, it's a temple. And that you have to take care of that temple, you have to understand that temple. And understand these words of Paramahansa Yogananda, that inside of our temple, that the true altar that we are trying to build, the true altar that we are trying to worship God on, is the altar of our spine. Meditate on those words. Try to understand those words. Try to go deeply into yourself where you can worship God on the altar of your spine. So that's enough of talking about sin. I want to go to the positive aspect now of this teaching of the parable of the prodigal son. And that I want for us not to think too much about sin, because we'll never get out by thinking about sin. That we have to look at the positive side of this story. And that is that God welcomed us with open arms. That this father took his son back in no matter what he did, how he squandered the wealth and did everything wrong in foreign lands. That the father took him right back in. And think how much joy was there when the father gave him a ring again, when the father gave him all of the wonderful things again, just to see his own son happy. And that's exactly what we need to focus on. That as we turn back towards God, that He is going to welcome us with open arms, and that our lives are just going to get so much better. So what I'm trying to say is that we have to focus on the positive side of life. That we have to focus on the good. Whatever negativity is there, it's always there. Just don't focus on it. Look, now if we are in duality, there'll be negative, there'll be positive. If that negative's there, resolutely turn your mind away from it. Focus on the positive. Always stay focused on the positive. And in that way, you will then be able to climb your inner ladder, worship on the altar of inner peace, and you will be able to, from that state of inner peace, go to the joy again. And so what I'm trying to explain here is that yes, there's duality, and yes, the scriptures say that we want to go beyond duality, but first we need to go to the positive side. That I may have said this last week, but that if you want to escape the dream, first have a good dream. Okay, now going back to this parable again, I want to talk about why is it that masters speak in parables? And they do that for many reasons. Number one, they do that so that they can reach everyone. That they might be talking to a group of people with varied levels of consciousness. And so people with the lowest level of consciousness will just say, well, it's nice that if I'm a bad son, they'll take it literally. That my earthly father will come back in and take me back into the home again. Okay, fine. Someone with a higher consciousness might understand that this is a parable, and that all of us as souls have run away from God out into the five senses. And now we're returning back to that altar of the spine and learning how to worship God, and that He absolutely will receive us as we worship Him on the inside. And I want to bring up in this moment, when we talk about parables, I want to just mention that Autobiography of a Yogi, that it is a great scripture. And there's been many things in there. For example, that when Sri Yukteswarji is standing at the threshold, he's standing at the door of Lahiri Mahashaya's house, and he can't see Babaji there. And Babaji says, you couldn't see me hiding behind the sunbeams. But perhaps that actually happened at Lahiri Mahashaya's house, and it's a good thing to go there in Benares and worship all the masters on that spot of pilgrimage. But it's also right to understand the Autobiography of a Yogi, that it's a scripture, and it too is speaking in parables, and that we need to understand it on that deep level, and we need to understand how to go into this doorway and see Babaji hiding behind the sunbeams there. Anyways, that's a very deep thing. just even thinking about it, you can hear my voice, that it just takes me inward, and that I want to go to that doorway and to worship Babaji there, at the true doorway there. Anyways, one more thing I want to think about when we talk about parables is just one more parable that Jesus used to say, that man shall not live by bread alone. And people would hear that, and they would think, gosh, he must be hiding a sandwich somewhere on him in his pocket. And okay, you could think about that, but what he really meant was that we live on energy. But he couldn't talk about energy in those darker times, and the consciousness of most men during that time was dark, so he couldn't say these things. But now we live in a higher time, and we can begin to talk about energy. And I'm going to switch right now to the next thing that I wanted to talk about, which was the Gita reading here, and I'm just going to read it again so we don't lose sight of it. And this is how we return back to our oneness with God, and it's in the Gita. Supreme blessedness is that yogis who has completely calmed his mind, controlled his ego-active tendencies, or rajas, and purged himself of desire, thereby attaining oneness with Brahma, the infinite spirit. And so I want to talk about three things here. One, how do we control our mind? Two, I want to talk about rajas. And three, I want to talk about desire. Let me start with rajas. We live in a rajasic world. Everywhere we look, as soon as we wake up out of bed, even probably we greet our family, and that we live in a world of rajas. My mind has been on this phone of wondering whether I put it on silent or not a little bit, and now we do live in Dwapara Yuga. It's the right thing for me to put this on silent. I apologize for that. But it leads into actually exactly what we're talking about, and that is, we live in Dwapara Yuga. Dwapara Yuga is a time of rajas, that it's a time where we begin to understand energy. And so everywhere you look, everyone tells you, well, have more desires, which is the other part I wanted to talk about this meeting. Have more desires, run out, go fulfill these desires. Get more energy to have more desires, fulfill these desires, we'll be happy. More money, more joy. But you know it's not true. That you know that you don't want to live in a state of tamas. You've lived enough lifetimes to know that won't make you happy, that tamas doesn't work. But I want to emphasize, rajas does not work. No matter how many people you see running around you out in your daily world, or even the successful people that you see on TV, that when they get all excited and their rajas is up, it will crash. That even if you feel an inward spiritual joy, don't just waste that out blustering and talking so frivolously and outwardly towards people. That's rajas. That even when you feel that inner spiritual joy, bring it up, calm it even more, get that peace going even more within yourself, and bring that up and bring it back to God here. So that when you speak with people, you speak from a state of inner calmness. You speak with inner bliss. That even if it's your job to convince people, if you're a salesman, and in some way I'm a spiritual salesman, it's my job to convince people. But if I try to convince them that they will find happiness through practicing these teachings, that they will know it deeply by my actions. They will know it deeply by the quality and tone of my voice. Not so much if I bluster and jump up and down and say that I swear this will make you happy. If people are looking for that deep happiness, that lasting happiness. So, remember, rajas doesn't work. Remember, you have to figure out how to make your life more sattvic. And in understanding how to do that, you will begin to understand who God is. And now I want to talk about how do we control the mind. And we won't just learn how to control the mind by trying to control the mind. It's like this Zen, I'm not sure if the pronunciation is Quan or Cone or whatever these things are, but there's one that, what is the sound of one hand clapping? And you think about that, that how can you control the mind with the mind? You can't. But you can learn to control the mind with the breath. And so I want to kind of begin to wrap this up by talking about the breath and how important it is. And it is so important to learn to simply watch the breath. That if you begin to learn to watch the breath, that you will begin to learn to watch your energy. You begin to learn to control the breath through Kriya Yoga. You begin to learn to control your energy. If you learn how to control your energy, you can learn how to control your mind. And yes, we want a very peaceful mind. It's your highest duty. That to take care of the body through right diet or proper exercise is valid. Do that. But prioritize everything in your life. That's not your highest priority. Your highest priority is to clean up your mind, to take responsibility and control for your mind, to make sure that the thoughts that are coming in are always sattvic and always peaceful. And once you achieve that step, then you'll be able to go to the higher steps of breathlessness. So coming back to the breath, you must watch that breath all the time. Yes, watch it when you're practicing Hong Sa. Yes, watch it intently as you're practicing Kriya. Yes, watch it intently after in the after states of Kriya. And don't neglect those after states of Kriya. But even as you go into your daily world, watch your breath. And if you do this deeply enough, you'll learn how to then watch your energy. I was in a satsang that Swami Kriyanandaji was giving, and someone asked him a question in that satsang, that how often should we watch the energy in our spine and inside us? I want to answer. I thought, I know the answer. And in my mind, the answer was, you should watch the energy when you practice Kriya Yoga. That was my answer to that person's question in my mind. Swamiji answered the question that you should always be aware of the energy in your spine. And as he says those, that enthusiasm, I know when. I don't know so much like I think that I do, but I'm so grateful. I'm still so grateful. He's an ever-living presence in my life to have a true teacher in my life, like Swami Kriyanandaji. Anyways, the point here is watch that breath until you get so good at it that you learn to watch your energy all the time. And wherever the energy is in the spine, that will be your level of consciousness. And it's always moving until we learn how to go very deep and we start to learn how to approach states of breathlessness. And in those states of breathlessness, we will learn how to achieve deep states of peace. And I don't want to scare you, but you'll never achieve the deepest states of peace without starting to approach breathlessness and ultimately go into deep states of breathlessness. And so the breath is a great, great key. It is India's gift to the world of how do we get out of this trap of suffering and pain and Maya, that it's the breath. And so I may end with this, depending on whether you have questions or not, but the breath, that if you wish to understand the secrets of creation, if you wish to understand how is space a delusion, watch your breath, watch your breath. And I don't have time to go into this, it's a deep subject. And I can talk about it, but words are only shells. To ultimately get the experience that I'm telling you, to understand that space is a delusion, watch your breath, watch it. And then to ultimately get the experience that time is a delusion, watch your breath. Concentrate on your breath. Take time to go into that. You think that it's a higher duty to go out and, go shopping for exact right food, and you do need to buy good food, but it doesn't have to be perfect. This world will never be perfect. Your highest duty, watch that breath, watch it, until you begin to understand who you truly are. You begin to understand what God is doing through you. So, anyway, that's the thing for this satsang. Watch that breath. Now, let's see, do we have any questions? Bilkul nahi. That means absolutely no. We have no questions. Well,
Do next time.
yeah, please next time. This, we can use these last few minutes. That next time, please do think of questions. Anything that you want to ask. That you can be situated anywhere. These satsangs are mainly for Calcutta, but you can be situated anywhere in the world and be asking questions. That there's many things that I do want to share with you, and so please do ask. The other thing is, please do watch this entire satsang. That yes, these are being recorded, and but if you watch the entire thing online in the moment, then you get to chant with us. And chanting is a very important thing, because you might have all of that stress from the office, from the daily hustle and bustle of going out and buying all the things we need in this world. But those chants, they will help calm your mind, that they will give you peace. So that's a benefit of watching online. And then the other reason is that it might seem like meditating online, like we're not really meditating together. We are. That once Swamiji, he would give TV shows, and he would say that he looked right through that camera, and that he would go into the souls of the people that were watching through the camera. And I don't have that ability yet, but I do feel our oneness when we begin to meditate together. And so I very much, this is the best we have right now in Brahmachari Yuga. It is better for us to meditate together in person. We will do that too, but for now let's meditate online together. There is a power in that, and we can begin to understand the power of Brahmachari Yuga, the power of energy, and how it does banish space, and how we begin to feel that we are all one through an understanding of energy. And so, I said it again last week, but this can't be hammered deeply enough into you, and that is, do understand that God first, he starts out as consciousness, and then that consciousness goes to mind goes to energy goes to this physical world. So that if we want to begin to take control of ourselves, that means even if you want to learn how to sit perfectly still in meditation, it's hard to just learn how to control the body, that you need to learn how to control your energy. And then, if you learn how to control your energy, you'll learn how to control your body. And if you learn how to control your energy, you'll learn how to control your mind. And you'll learn then how to have a higher state of consciousness. So, if you can't sit still for 3 hours, like Swamiji recommended, in order to be able to completely master Patanjali's step of asana, or asana as we sometimes call it, that do more kriya. If you do more kriya, you'll be able to learn how to sit still. And if you can't control your mind, do more kriya. And kriya is the secret technique that will teach you how to make those thoughts that right now are going all wild here and there. Doing more kriya will teach you how to calm your mind, how to interiorize your mind, until you can get to a point where you just have one little thought that's just rippling on the ocean. And then you'll learn how to make that one little thought God, God, God. Memorize Master's poems. Memorize that poem, in the boisterous din of activity, my silent war cry will be God, God, God. And then you'll be able to take that poem into your life. You'll be able to concentrate your energy. You'll be able to concentrate your mind here at the spiritual eye. Even in the battle din of activity, you'll be able to chant God, God, God. And in that state, there won't be a difference for you between meditation and activity, that you will see them as the highest thing. You know, it's an interesting thing that we get this tension in us that we think, okay, now I'm meditating, and all the duties that we think we need to do to go and serve in the world in there, we think, well, I have to go serve. And then when we're serving, we think, oh my gosh, the meditation is the highest duty. I should be meditating. That tension will drop away as you go deep into God, and you begin to see that the whole thing's His dream, that He's the one doing everything. He's the one meditating through you. He's the one serving through you. That there's no difference between those, that you have to learn to feel them within. And I just have to say this. I hope that I'm not ending on a strange note, but these parables, as we were talking about, one other reason that God, or that the Masters talk through parables, is that we have to learn to attune ourselves to the saints, that we have to learn to attune ourselves. And if you have the good company to be able to meet a saint, that when he talks, that he'll be talking in parables all the time, because his mind is always on God. And if you can tune in to that saint, then you can begin to understand how he's helping you in every word, and he's helping you come back to God in every way, that he, as a child of God, wants so deeply to bring you back to God. So cooperate with the saints. Get in tune with the saints. Get your mind in tune with the saints, and they will guide your mind, and they will bring you back home to God very, very quickly. So thank you, friends, for joining, and I just wish the highest bliss and the highest joy to you